Welcome to The Explainer. All right, let's get right into it. We're going to tackle one of the biggest buzzwords out there, big data. What on earth is it really? And more importantly, how do we get from just having a ton of information to creating something of actual value?
Okay, to really get this, let's start with a quote that just blows your mind. Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt said this years ago, and that pace, it has only gotten faster since then. I mean, think about that. This isn't just a small increase, it's a straight-up data explosion. It's a scale that's almost impossible to really wrap your head around, but, well, that's the world we live in now.
So where is all this data even coming from? Well, spoiler alert, it's coming from us. To really understand big data, you gotta first see how we're all creating it, every single moment of every single day.
Here's the core concept, and it's actually pretty simple. Basically, everything you do, from the second you wake up, is leaving behind a little digital breadcrumb. That coffee you paid for with your credit card, the map app that tracks your commute, the show you binged last night, it all creates a tiny piece of data. It all adds up.
Just think about your own activity data. That smartwatch on your wrist, it's constantly logging your steps, your heart rate. Your browser is keeping a record of every single search. Even reading a book on an e-reader generates data on how fast you turn the pages and what you decide to highlight.
And then you've got conversation data. Our conversations used to just disappear into thin air, right? Not anymore. Now, they're digital. Every email you send, every photo you post, every single command you bark at your smart speaker, it's all data that can be stored, saved, and analyzed.
And finally, there's sensor data. And this stuff is, well, it's everywhere, a lot of the time without us even realizing it. Your smartphone alone has a GPS tracking your location, an accelerometer tracking your movement. Now, just imagine that scaled up to sensors in our cars, in our homes, in giant factories, all of them constantly streaming information about the world around us.
Okay, so we're basically swimming in this ocean of data. How in the world do experts even begin to make sense of all this chaos? Well, they've come up with a special vocabulary to describe it, to give it some structure. They call it the 5 V's.
And this is where it gets really useful. This framework, these 5 simple words, volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value, they give us a powerful way to define and really understand any big data challenge. So let's break them down one by one.
First up, volume. This is the one everyone thinks of. It's just the sheer, unbelievable scale of the data. We're not talking about gigabytes anymore, we're way past terabytes. We're talking zettabytes, brontobytes, numbers that are almost comically huge. It's just an insane quantity of information.
Want to put that in perspective? Here's a crazy stat. Just the engines on commercial airplanes in the United States generate about 2.5 zettabytes of data every single year, and that's just one industry. Wild.
Next up is velocity, and this is all about speed. See, big data isn't just a giant static pile of information. It's being created and flying around at an incredible rate. You see it every day with social media trends that go viral in a matter of minutes. And that speed, that's what makes real-time analysis possible.
This is a brilliant way to picture it. Imagine a big retailer puts tiny little sensors on all their shopping carts. If each one sends out its position just twice a second, across only 100 stores, you're suddenly generating 2 million data points every single second. That is velocity in action.
Okay, let's move on to variety. Back in the day, data was, well, it was neat. It fit nicely into spreadsheets and databases. That's what we call structured data. But today, it's estimated that over 80% of the world's data is unstructured. It's messy. It's everything from the text in your emails, to photos, to YouTube videos, to voice recordings.
A fantastic, almost sci-fi example of this? The stock market. More than 85% of all trades are now controlled by algorithms, by machines. And these machines, they're not just looking at neat financial reports. Oh no, they are scanning news articles, social media feeds, even the sentiment of tweets to make decisions in a fraction of a second.
The 4th V is veracity, and honestly, this one's a huge challenge. It all boils down to trust. How trustworthy is your data? With so much of it coming from messy sources, social media posts full of typos, slang, and opinions, the really critical job is figuring out how to find the reliable signal in all of that noise. So now that we have the language, volume, velocity, variety, veracity, here's where the story takes a really surprising twist. It turns out the goal isn't just to hoard as much data as you possibly can. The real quest, the whole point of this, is the 5th V, value. And that brings us to this really important distinction between big data and what people sometimes call small data. You can think of it like this. Big data is so massive and complex, you need powerful computers and AI to make any sense of it. Small data, on the other hand, is, well, it's small enough for a human brain to process, maybe with just a simple spreadsheet.
Which of course leads to the obvious question, which one is better? Should we be chasing after these giant, complex data sets, or is there more power in something simpler?
And here's the punchline. It's the wrong question. It's a trap. The goal was never about the size of the data. It's about the value, the information. What can you actually learn from it? The truth is, a small, clean, super relevant data set is almost always better than a massive, messy, unfocused one. Size absolutely does not equal insight.
So, if value is the name of the game, how do you actually win? You can't just stumble into it. You need a plan, you need a strategy. And we can break that strategy down into something called the 5 Ps.
Think of this as your playbook. This is how you go from that raw, chaotic mess of data to getting tangible, real-world results. It's a 5-part framework that can help any organization build a truly data-driven approach.
And it works like a cycle. It all starts with purpose. You have to know what business problem you're trying to solve before you even think about the data. Next, you need the right people. Data scientists, analysts, strategists, the folks with the skills to turn numbers into a story. Then, you need a process. How is this data actually going to be used to make decisions? Once you know that, you can pick the right platforms, the technology that will support your process. And finally, the last step is programmability, which is all about automating actions based on the insights you discover, creating a system that learns and acts on its own.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We've seen the unbelievable scale. We've learned the language, and we've got a strategic playbook. The data is all around us, and it's growing every single second. So the only real question left is, how will you turn it into value?